My name is Carson Seelman, and this is On Air with Heritage Action, a podcast built for conservatives. Twice a week, we break down some of the most important issues facing our country and talk about how you can get involved today in the fight for conservative values. Today, we're joined by Jared Eckert, a researcher from the Heritage Foundation. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Jared's here to talk about the so-called Respect for Marriage Act. Jared, can you tell us a little bit about the bill, what it does, and why we should be concerned about it?
Yeah. So last week, the House passed the bill, Respect for Marriage Act, which does not respect marriage, in fact, contrary to its name. And 47 Republicans voted for it. So in the past, Republicans have been very opposed to measures like this. And while public opinion has changed on the topic of same-sex marriage, what we need to understand is that this bill is not really about same-sex marriage at all. It's just another Trojan horse of the left to impose radical policies of their sexual ideology, gender ideology, that would radically redefine marriage, frankly.
Yeah. And just like you said, it would radically redefine marriage. Can you give us some examples, maybe even beyond same-sex marriage where this bill might have impacts that we are not really talking about very widely?
So again, we recognize that while public opinion on same-sex marriage has changed, the legal landscape has not. Americans today enjoy the ability to marry partners of the same sex. That has not changed. The court, a lot of this is a kind of overreaction, fear-mongering in response to the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade. And Clarence Thomas had issued an opinion where he said, basically on particular legal doctrines that maybe we could reconsider some of these things. But all of the majority opinion recognized that this applied only to abortion, not to same-sex marriage,
right,
not to contraception, which is why the left is they're pushing it in fear-mongering. So what it does is basically it would require that basically the federal government would have to recognize any relationship that any one state recognizes as legal marriage. So what this means is if just one state recognizes polygamy, that the federal government would have to, and states would have to recognize this.
Wow. Yeah. That's pretty radical. And can you talk a little bit about what this bill might mean for religious freedoms too?
Yeah. So this law targets anyone acting under the color of state law. And we know that the court has indicated that this may include any organizations that contract with the state. So this is especially of concern for religious foster care and adoption agencies, which contract with the state to provide child placement. And to think that this won't be an issue is very misguided. Because we knew, particularly for instance, in Philadelphia attempted to do the same sort of thing, saying, "Hey, if you're acting under color of state law, placing children in families, you can't discriminate." So they said against same-sex couples. Well, that basically would have forced religious organizations like Catholic Social Services to violate their sincerely held belief that marriage is between one man and one woman. So thankfully, the Supreme Court last summer ruled in favor of Catholic Social Services and upheld religious freedom. But to think that activists wouldn't sue to try to shut them down, they will. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how much.
Right, exactly. And I guess that sort of leads into my next question. So let's say this bill is signed by President Biden tomorrow. What would happen to those who go against this policy because of their deeply held religious beliefs? How would they be, I guess, punished?
Yeah. So again, this bill creates a private right of action for individuals and organizations, especially activists, to sue anyone they allege is acting under color of state law. So again, this targets and opens up the possibility for religious organizations to be targeted by activists, to be shut down by them.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty intense.
And also, I'll just add that it doesn't just apply to same-sex marriage. It applies to, again, anything that any one state would legally recognize as marriage. So if that's polygamy, right, then if an organization doesn't acknowledge polygamy within, according to their sincerely held beliefs, then they could be liable to lawsuits as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that, family and religion have, for a long time been foundational pillars of our society. So how does this bill, I guess, fit into the left's broader woke gender identity ideology agenda?
Yeah. Well, again, this is what we need to understand is that this is has nothing to do with same-sex marriage. This has everything to do with codifying radical progressive policies into federal law. Again, the right is not under threat. This is about redefining what marriage is in a very radical way. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I would say is in terms of this issue, that, this is about going after what is really important. And marriage and family, like you said, are pillars of our society. The state has had an interest not just in any old romantic feelings or relationships, but has had interest in marriage as defined between one man and one woman because it's ordered towards reproduction, to raising of children. And we want good citizens. We want the flourishing of a nation. And marriages as defined, natural marriage as defined as between one man and one woman, right, is actually the best and most stable environment. When those are protected, when those are prioritized, children are best served. So those create the best conditions for children to be raised well. And there's tons of research that's been done on this.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. That's a great point. Like Jared said, the House has already passed this bill, and now it will likely head to the Senate for a vote, assuming that Schumer can, I guess, get his act together. But a lot of conservatives have already come out in opposition to this bill, but there are some who are, I guess, undecided. So what would you say to those senators who are undecided on this bill?
Yeah, I think the goal of senators should be to keep the focus where the focus ought to be. There are a lot of things going on right now in the world and in our nation. And the reality is, again, that the legal landscape hasn't changed at all under Dobbs for same-sex marriage. It's not under threat. And in fact, I can imagine that a lot of gay Americans are probably more interested not in litigating or passing a bill on gay marriage, but making sure that gas is affordable, that food is affordable. So we need to be focusing on real issues like inflation and like the war in Ukraine, like the border crisis. We need to be keeping the focus there, and senators shouldn't fall for the Democrats' trap, which is, again, to bring this bill, which is full of radical progressive policy, as a way to distract from their radical progressive policy agenda.
Yeah, definitely. There are a lot of other issues, like you said, that we could definitely be focusing on, especially inflation as we potentially head into a recession, unless they redefine that word too. So you've written a lot of papers on this topic and about kind of culture in general. Where can our viewers go to read more about your work and what you've done in the past, what you're going to do in the future? Yeah,
so listeners and viewers can go online to the Heritage's website, heritage.org. There's a whole page for gender issues. You can look up my work. You can look up the work of my colleague, Jay Richards, and we publish a lot on this. And then they can also go to the Daily Signal, which is one of our major outlets here at Heritage, where we write frequently on these issues.
Great. Absolutely. And for those watching at home, one other thing you can do that's really important, make sure you're contacting your senators, make sure you know where their stance on this issue is. And if they are undecided or leaning yes, make sure you tell them that you demand them to vote no on this radical legislation. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for being here. And
thanks for having me.
We'll look to hear from you again soon.
Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Thanks. That's it for another episode of On Air with Heritage Action. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard in today's episode, please click the follow button. If you want to receive a text message each time a new episode airs, text podcast to 51776 and you'll never miss an episode. That's podcast to 51776. Hi, it's me again, and we need your help. If you like the insights and activist resources we are providing, please take 1 minute and help us spread the word. Share this episode with friends and family on social media, email, or text. We need everyone's help in the fight to hold Washington accountable. And don't forget, you are also able to subscribe and listen to episodes on your smartphone. Just open up your favorite podcast app and search for On Air with Heritage Action. Click subscribe and download episodes so that you can take them with you on the go. It's the best way to make sure you never miss a thing. Thanks.